Hey, and welcome to this episode of Real Chiropractic Stories. I'm Dr. Gregg Gerstin, your host, and today we have with us a good friend of mine, colleague, as well as mentor, Dr. 𝗁cie𝘂𝗹𝗻𝘁.
How's it going, Greg?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thanks for being here with us.
I appreciate you having me.
You know, in getting started on our discussions, I always like for our guests to share with our listeners a little bit about themselves. So can you tell our listeners about you?
So I am a chiropractor. I live here in Chicago, and but my practice is in Springfield, which is 3 hours south. The reason I live in Chicago is because I have a marketing agency that I run for chiropractors, and I'm in my office, about 3 days a month, checking to make sure that the place didn't burn down.
And that's the place down in downstate.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Well, we're going to wind up talking about how you made a shift into marketing.
Yep.
But what I want to get started with is, how were you introduced to chiropractic?
So it's the least inspiring story of maybe any that I've ever heard. Most people have these like life-changing, my parents were told to take me home to die, and I went to a chiropractor and now I'm thriving. And I mean, like literally, like when I started out in chiropractic, like once I got into practice, I would go to seminars and they would like pass the mic around and everyone would tell their chiropractic story. And I'm just like, man, I wish I had one of those. But so mine was, I was going to go to dental school my whole life. And I decided I had gone to grad school to kind of help boost up my application to go into dental school. And I was in my second year of grad school, and I just decided that I didn't want to be a dentist anymore. I was just like, I don't want to work in people's mouths all day long. This just doesn't sound like a great time for the rest of my life.
I'm kind of with you on it. There's other places you'd rather spend your day, isn't there?
There is, absolutely. So I was selling women's shoes as a part-time job when I was in grad school at the time, and I was the top selling women's shoe salesman in famous bar at the time. So that was a very proud moment for me.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Your mom, definitely proud.
For sure. My dad more so. He's more of the salesman, yeah. So on Saturdays and Sundays, it would get busy, sometimes Fridays. So whenever it would get really busy, they wanted us selling more than putting shoes away or ringing up our sales. So they would have people that would come down and ring up the sales, or they would put the shoes away that they call them drags, like people that or shoes that didn't get bought. So I would, this guy, and I wish I could remember his name now, but he's just this very strange guy. Like at the time he was probably like 45. He's probably like 60 now, but at the time he was 45. And I'm guessing at his age, but I always remember he would wear white tennis shoes with his like black slacks and like short sleeve dress shirts. So he was just like kind of a strange. He lived with his mom, he was just like kind of a strange guy. Super nice, a little bit strange, right?
Yeah.
So he would come and ring up our sales, and you just kind of like talk to these people, because they're just passing by. And he was always very inquisitive, and I didn't really like spend a lot of time talking to him. But at some point, I must have told him that I was going to dental school. So like it was like a Wednesday night. We're like passing each other in the store. I'm going to the restroom, and he's like, "Hey Nick, are you still going to dental school?" And I was just like, "What a weird question," but no, I decided that I didn't want to go anymore. And he's like, "Oh, what are you going to do now?" And I was like, dude, I don't know. I'm trying to go to the bathroom. I think I might be going to look into pharmaceutical sales or something, because I was like a salesperson and I math and science, whatever. And he was like, "Oh, you should be a chiropractor." And I said, "Okay,
Wow.
okay, I'll see you later,
Really?
buddy." Yeah. So that night, just kind of like stuck in my head. And so that night I get online and I'm like looking at what chiropractors do, because I'd never been to a chiropractor before, and I was like, well, the things I wanted to be a dentist for were to be a doctor and own your own business. I can do that with a chiropractor. And at the time it said that the average salary was somewhat close to dentist. I now know that was a huge lie, but at the time it was like dentists were like 75 and chiropractors were like 65. And I was like, that seems close enough. Like, right. I'm sure I'll be on the top end of whatever. So, I think 45 days later, like the next day, like I called 5 offices.
That conversation was what had you made.
And that only that conversation.
Wow. So this may be one of the most interesting and unique introductions to chiropractic ever.
Right.
The guy at the shoe store that winds up helping and supporting you, suggesting it.
Yes. And I wish that I wish he was here right now. Just at some point, if I ever find, because sometimes I'll see
what
him,
was going through his head to make that suggestion?
It was Greg, the way I just said it was the way that it went down. It was such a strange conversation. Wow. Like, I'm just like, he was just like, "You should be a chiropractor." Like with no context or anything. It was just like, "You should be a chiropractor." And then 45 days later, I was a chiropractor.
Wow.
Or I was in chiropractic school.
I've got to be honest. Thank goodness that guy had that conversation with you, because
I appreciate that
that shift has not only changed the trajectory for your life, but for hundreds of doctors and for thousands of patients. So I'm going to thank that guy for you.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I'm going to say, though, that shift or that suggestion and your follow through on it made a change. But there's got to be something a little bit more on how you learned, understood, had an epiphany to really what chiropractic is, because chiropractic is very different than dentistry. Chiropractic is very different than pharmaceuticals or the other things that you were looking to go into. And you've wound up doing it now for a while.
Yeah.
So what was there a time, or what was the occurrence, or what happened to you that provided a bit of a pivot that gave you, I'll call it that aha moment that made you realize what chiropractic was or is?
So my first week in chiropractic school, they start talking about, because they a lot of people that are there have never been to a chiropractor. So they really do have to kind of educate you on what chiropractic really is. And as soon as I understood that the nervous system controlled everything and that pressure on the nervous system was like stepping on a water hose and not as much information will get from the brain and the body and the body to the brain, I was just like, this is what I've always believed. Like I always believed that the body had the natural ability to heal itself. Like when I was young, like I wouldn't take medicine for anything. I just thought and I somehow inherently believed that if I let my body fight off the cold or the flu or whatever, that it would be stronger afterwards. So I'd be less and I just never really got sick much as a kid. Like the only surgery that I had as a kid was I had my appendix out when I was in high school, but that was really about it. And so I was just always a healthy kid. I was always athletic and outside and playing. And I don't know. And when I got there, it made so much sense. And it was how sometimes you're just in a place where you it feels right. You're just this is where I'm supposed to be. That's the way I felt at first week of chiropractic school. And my class, in chiropractic school, you are with your class and you go through chiropractic school with the same 100 people. And I met it was basically undergrad all over again. So I probably had more fun in chiropractic school than you were supposed to have. But I had the best friends in chiropractic school, so we had a lot of fun.
Well, that makes it a lot easier because it is hard work going through chiropractic school. Right. We don't take summers, 3.5 years of intensive work. There's 4 parts of boards that you've got to study for. There's entrance exams to clinic and all of that. Those things to wind up doing to just get started into practice. So I'm
getting hives just thinking about it again.
I can tell you're getting a little flush. Sorry to bring you back and give you those flashbacks. Right. So that educational moment that they provided for you at the beginning of school, wow, that's really powerful, because I think some schools actually go away from that or they don't offer that anymore. So that's super important for these docs who aren't or getting into chiropractic because they think of it as a good career versus understanding what it truly is.
Right.
Now, can you share with me any stories that you've experienced, or maybe even the story or experience that you had as a part of your first entrance into chiropractic care?
Yeah. So I've never had, I've just been very lucky in that I've really never had any real struggles with typical chiropractic symptoms. I get adjusted regularly to stay healthy, but I don't suffer from back pain or headaches or anything like that. So, when I do get adjusted, though, my digestion is better, so that's always a good one. The best story that I have, though, was my first chiropractic patient. So my first chiropractic patient was in student clinic. So in student clinic, I think it was 𝘁𝗏𝗃, we start to be able to adjust other students, right, before we get into outpatient clinic and try 9 and 10.
So we test on ourselves before we test on others.
That's right. That's right. And we did lots of testing on our classmates, and we would get adjusted 900 times in a week, which was probably not the best idea.
Less than ideal, but we were feeling awesome.
We were feeling great, right? So my first patient in student clinic, she came in, and I knew how to adjust. I kind of knew the gist of it, but I didn't know what I knew, when I was in practice. And so she came in, and she was having low back pain, but because we have to go through all of the history and everything, she told me that she hadn't had her cycle for, I think it was 3 years at the time. And she was a young girl. She was pre-chiropractic. So she was probably 18, 19, 20, somewhere around there.
So what you mean by pre-chiropractic is that most chiropractic schools not only offer the doctoral program, but they also offer prerequisites and other undergraduate degrees to help students in sort of matriculating into the program. So
Correct.
she was on that path.
Correct. So she was a young girl, and we were treating her low back pain because I at the time I wasn't like thinking that I was going to make any changes with her cycle. I was like, well, maybe,
Right. I mean,
like as the nerve.
You decided to go to chiropractic school after the guy at the shoe store told you to be one.
Right. Exactly. By then, though, I knew that it was possible that maybe that was coming from. So I was like, oh, you got low back pain. Nerves go to all those areas, and so we will maybe.
And what he means by that is the nerves that come out of the lower back provide strength and energy to the digestive system and lower abdomen, including the reproductive system.
That's a better way to say it. Yeah, that's right. It's been so long since I've talked to patients about this stuff. So anyway, we started adjusting. Low back pain, maybe like instead of like a 7, it was like a 6, and it just wasn't like really doing a whole lot. We'd been going on for about a month or so. And my favorite clinician, where did you go to school at?
So I went to Life and Logan. So we graduated from the same school.
Okay. Do you remember Dr. Montgomery?
Yeah, he's awesome.
He's the best. He'll if you want a second story, this is the best. This is actually the best chiropractic story I've ever seen. But mine is mine.
Let's finish this one, and then maybe we'll get to that one.
So he was my clinician that day, meaning like he would come in and like watch us adjust and give us any tips. So he comes in and I say, I'm like, hey, listen, like she's had low back pain, isn't really getting any better. She's got these problems as well with her cycle. What are your thoughts? And he says, well, let me look at her x-ray. And he's like, what level are you adjusting? And I said, I think I said L4. And he was like, move your hand up an inch. And I was like, okay. And he was like, I think you need to adjust L3. And I mean, he looked at the x-ray for like 10 seconds. It's just like, he is so good.
So Dr. Montgomery, we graduated about the same time. So he was an experienced practitioner, had a massively successful practice. I believe it was out west, like in California or something like that. And had relatively recently just moved back to the school to help in supporting the clinics.
Yeah. And his dad was like, it's
named after
his dad. But I mean, this guy is a magician. Like I've just never seen chiropractic. I've never seen somebody who is better at chiropractic than Dr. Montgomery. Like he's just unbelievable. So he's like, move your hand up 1 inch. So I moved my hand up 1 inch and I adjust her. And I mean, it was the biggest clunk. I mean, it was just like, as chiropractors, like, know it when you got it, right? Something changed. So I think she was coming in like twice a week or something. So she came back. That was at the end of the week. She went home on the weekend. She came in the next week. And she had her first cycle. I mean, like that night, she went home and she started a cycle for the first time in 3 years. And I mean, like she had gotten adjusted back. She was like from some like Mountain West, Idaho, Montana, something like that. And she'd been adjusted her whole life. And again, they just they weren't on the right area.
segment.
And that's why specific chiropractic is much different than just like mobilizing a joint. So that was
what a powerful change for her.
I mean, she could have maybe like just if she'd have continued on like that, she'd never would have been able to have kids. Now hopefully she's got 7 of them. Who knows?
Yeah, hopefully.
I should follow up with her too.
The other things that can wind up happening too is that you can wind up having issues with bone density.
Yep.
It could have progressed to affecting her digestive system because those nerves are really close into effect.
Yep.
And for many people, that's what winds up happening, especially young ladies. For young ladies, they have difficulty or challenging cycles, and they wind up doing things like taking birth control pills to manage the cycle, and then they don't have the symptoms or the cycle, and then later on in life, it winds up progressing to digestive orders, and there's an epidemic of irritable bowel syndrome going on right now.
Right.
And they get put on really heavy medications to wind up managing that when nobody's ever looked to try to see, is there a problem with disconnect?
Yeah.
That's a powerful story. So thank you for sharing with that. And that could totally wind up changing your trajectory on understanding and communicating with patients.
That was, I mean, that gave me so much belief and clarity on what we were doing. And that was, again, that was my first patient in student clinic. And so I went forward just expecting miracles from then forward. And we've had lots of them in the practice.
When you expect them, you see them. That's
right.
Now, you were telling me or mentioning about Dr. Montgomery's story or a story with him. Let's get back to that.
This was the craziest thing I've ever seen. So we're in try 9. Right. So in try 9 of chiropractic school.
So there are 10 total tries.
10 total tries.
So you're almost done with school.
Yeah.
You know what you're doing.
Yes.
You've been in clinic. You have someone still supervising you.
Yeah.
However, they start to release the reins to you, do a little bit more independent work. And sometimes you may even be in a clinic outside of the student clinic in someone's actual office working underneath their supervision.
Right. So this is, I guess I meant more of like just the mentality of someone in chiropractic school at Tri9. There's not one person in there that believes that like medicine should be the first route of treatment, right?
Yep.
So we're in Tri9, and one of the guys in our class who's like big, strapping, like 6'4", like used to be a baseball player, and just a strong dude, literally can't sit up. Like he is just doubled over in pain all day long from the morning until the afternoon. And he's just like doubled over in pain. Like he's just like miserable. Right. So we're all, in Tri9, we're all, doctors now. So we are all diagnosing him and all deciding what it is. Most people have decided it's appendicitis, but so he's going to have to go to the ER and get surgery and have this taken care of. Right. So he's just trying to get through the day. And we're in our last class. It was sports injuries with Dr. Montgomery. And he sees the guy and he's just like, what's wrong with you? And he's like, I don't know. I think I got appendicitis or something. I need to go to the ER. And he cancels class, which like never happens. No. He literally just like cancels class and he's like, come with me. And so he had an office in the like near the clinic. And so we're all literally like following him like he's Pied Piper, right? So we're like just like we gotta
double file lines.
We have
everyone's
to see this,
holding
right?
hands.
Yeah. So basic technique is what is taught, or what Logan was kind of founded on. And basic technique is where there's a ligament that's in between the sacrum, which is the bottom bone of the spine, and the femur. So if it gets tight, it can pull the sacrum out of place. And if the foundation of the house is bad, then the rest of it can be bad, right? So the idea with basic is that you go in and you lift up on that 𝗁𝗁𝗃𝗃𝗃 ligament, which is a very sensitive area, basically 1 inch away from people's anus. And so you lift up on that releases the pressure, allows the sacrum to go back into place. And it's so gentle. It's not like what you would think of when chiropractic. You're literally just sitting here like this, and then you just do this all the way up the spine. And we have to learn it. I would say that if I had to guess, maybe 1 to 3 people out of our class of 100 went on to actually practice it in clinic. So Dr. Montgomery 100% believes in it. He also can do all the other things. But so we go, he puts him on the table, takes him down. It's like a hydraulic table, takes him down, and he starts doing basic, right? And he shows us, he lifts up the shirt and he's like, do you see? So the lordosis of the lumbar spine should go like this when you're laying down. It had like peaked at L3 again. L3 is a tough one in these stories, I guess. So it had like peaked. It had like reversed the curve. It was like red, and even I could see it. I'm colorblind, and I was just like, that doesn't look good.
Yeah, and everyone else, L3 is in the middle of the lower back. So if you follow the top of your hip all the way over to the middle, that's about where L3 is, and it's supposed to dip versus peak.
That's right. So it had peaked. So he, takes his pants down, puts his contact on. And for just, 5 minutes, he's just doing his thing up the spine, whatever. And we're just like, there's no way that this is going to do anything, right? We had only learned basic in school. Like, we'd never seen anybody really treat anyone with it. So, and again, this guy could not sit. He couldn't sit up straight. It hurt so much, right? So he brings him up. He did it for 5 minutes. He brings him up. He comes off of the table. And the face paper is just covered in sweat. He was just sweat. He just looked like he had taken a shower. And he steps back off of the table, and he was afraid. Everybody was like,
"Are you gonna fall over?
So
You're gonna
how is it?
Yeah.
He zero pain. He went from a 15 on a scale of 1 to 10 to a 0, and he was afraid to move. Because he thought if he moved, he was going to mess it up and go right back. Because, he was in pain. It was like somebody was stabbing him in the stomach. And Dr. Montgomery, no big deal to him. He's just seen it a million times. And he's like, yeah, you're going to, you'll have really bad bowel movements over the next 48 hours. But then you should be fine. Wow. And so my other friend lived with him at the time. And he was like, we couldn't even be in the house. We had to go outside. Bad. It was that bad. He was in the bathroom for the next 48 hours. But think about what would have happened if he would have gone to the hospital. They wouldn't have been doing basic on him. There would have been CTs. There would have been MRIs. There would have been surgeries just to try to maybe this is what's going on. Let's try it. Let's see what's going on. He'd be on medication. The kid was miserable. And he never went from even from a 0 to a 1.
Wow.
It was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And luckily, like, I saw it again at my first patient. I saw this great organic result. And right before I graduated, I saw just like an absolute miracle. I was just like, I couldn't believe it.
These changes are ones that what I've found and what drives me to wind up doing this podcast and sharing these stories, because so many people have heard that chiropractic is for neck and lower back pain, and it's amazing with it. But what people haven't connected with and don't understand, we get taught in elementary school that the nervous system tells everything else what to do. But then through the rest of our lives, we're taught that our blood dictates everything, and that chemistry is what dictates how we work, not how our nervous system works. Those stories are so powerful.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for sharing those with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then, I want to also ask, is there anything you want to share with our listeners?
Chiropractic is I mean, it's given me so much in my life. I practiced seeing patients for 5 years, and it was just the most rewarding thing in the world for me. I ended up kind of taking another path on my career. I just was passionate about the marketing side of it, and I thought that I could help more people by helping more offices, see more patients. But seeing patients was just like, I have other businesses now, and no business is like chiropractic business. Like with a chiropractic office, people are happy to see you. They're happy to pay you. There's very few like upset conversations. It's just like everybody's usually like in a good mood. There's the rare occurrence where there's some like friction, but it's just 99% happiness in a chiropractic practice. Even when somebody comes in pain, they have hope now because they're usually in the right place. Other businesses that I have are not like that. They're much more stressful. There's more negativity in them, and I always miss that like 99% positivity.
Well, you're still in chiropractic and you have the practice downstate. But what made you make a shift out of active practice and into what you're doing right now?
So my number one core value is freedom. So the thing I didn't like about chiropractic was that if I told somebody that they needed to be there 3 times a week and it was important, and then I went on vacation to Jamaica in my my first year in practice, and I just had to shut down the office. But I'm sure there were new patients the week before that I had told it's really important for you to be in here 3 times a week. But then because I went to Jamaica, it wasn't that important, I guess, right? So I realized that I couldn't do it on my own. I had a heart attack at 30 with the stress of running. I had 2 practices at the time. I was going 3 days a week in each, and I was trying to learn how to run a business at the same time. I had no idea what I was doing. So
you were working 80 hours a week, and you were then trying to figure out how to run a practice.
If not more, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was, so I ended up having a heart attack from stress. Everything was like physically fine. Everything looked good when they did all their tests, but the stress was what did it. And that's, had I been adjusted more then, maybe we would have avoided that, because it was all the nervous system not functioning the way that it should have been.
And for other docs who are listening, when you're on your own, it can be hard to get out to get adjusted.
Right.
I find that I practice on my own in practice right now, but I find it essential to have an emergency chiropractor and then a primary chiropractor.
Yeah.
The emergency one is one I could zip in that's around the corner. The primary one is who winds up really truly managing my spine and my nervous system.
Yeah.
For young docs, if you want to figure out how to do that, reach out to me. I'll help you out.
That's great.
So you realize that it couldn't keep this up?
Yeah, I couldn't do it all on my own. I definitely needed help, not only with staff, like helping me run the practice, but also like I needed other doctors so that if I was gone, if I got sick or if I got into an accident, that somebody would be there to see the patients, as well as I had more capacity because I was only in one office 3 days a week and the other one 3 days a week. So I got associates to be in each one of the practices. And then I realized I'm like, I am the reason. I was basically the subluxation in my own practice. I was the reason why our growth was kind of hitting a ceiling. So I said, what I need, because I'm bad at focusing on the doctor side of it and then the business side of it. So I hired a second doctor. And when I hired the second associate doctor for my main practice, I had sold the other practice. When I hired the second doctor, that's when I said, all right, I'm going to back out of seeing patients so that I can focus entirely on the business building side of it. And I can go out and I can try to reach more people, because what we were doing is we were just kind of staying in the office, hoping people found out about us. We had some advertising out there, we'd get referrals, but we weren't doing anything actively to like get out into the community and really go find people that needed our help. So when I hired the second doctor, then I was able to start actually getting outside of the practice and bringing more people in. And we grew, I think we were probably like 75 people a week at the time, visits a week at the time that I stopped seeing patients. And we were at probably about 200 to 250 a week in the 3 to 4 years after that. So we were able to do so much more, help so many more people. We moved from a 1,200 square foot space into a 5,200 square foot space. We added in a gym. We had all types of different services that could help people beyond just the chiropractic adjustment. So without that, I would have never been able to grow to that level. And then now because I love the marketing side of it so much, and I believe that if we get our message out like what you're doing here, that more people will be under care. So that's when I started helping other doctors spread the message of chiropractic in their own local communities and start to build their practices that way.
Gotcha. And who do you do that with, or how do you do that?
What do you mean?
How do you help them to spread their message?
Content marketing. So like we help, doctors like yourself create videos, create blogs, and then get those out into their, because most offices draw from maybe 10 to 15 miles around their practice. And so we try to get that out to those people that live close by so that they can discover it on their own. Because not every doctor has the time or the wherewithal or want to like go out and like do spinal screenings or do talks. So this gives them a way to where they can shoot a video, they can write a blog, and then use our strategy to get that out so that when people are either looking for solutions, they can find them, or when they're spending time on Facebook and Instagram, they can see videos that educate them on their body, natural health care, chiropractic, things like that.
Well, I can tell you in practice, some of the hardest things to do are to wind up being able to break away that time to focus on the distribution of all the information that we have kept up in our heads.
Exactly.
So I really thank you for being able to put together a process to help doctors be able to distribute that content and information, because, just like the reason why we do this podcast, more people need to hear more stories about what chiropractic is and it isn't. So I want to thank you for doing that. If any of our listeners want to connect with you, what are the best ways for them to find you?
On Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, if you look for Dr. Nick Silveri, Dr. Nick Silveri, I'm there. And then you can find me Leverage Media, LVRGmedia.com is the marketing agency. And just because it popped into my head as you were saying that, but I've always heard in chiropractic, if they just knew what we knew, they would do what we do, right? And there's so many doctors out there that have all of this information that it's like they're keeping it to themselves. And I'm like, man, you've got to spread that. And it can't just be when somebody's sitting in front of you one-to-one, or you can go do a talk at the bank and talk to 6 people at a time. Like, these modern forms of communication give you the ability to talk to tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people by making one video and then just knowing how to distribute it. So
that's the key.
Yeah.
Talking to just your one person in front of you, or family in front of you, or practice in front of you is awesome.
Right.
But we've got to share this message with the masses, because health in America is not going in the right direction. We need more people who are healthier to help more people get healthy.
Yep. And the only way that they know that is if they know what the options are. Right now, somebody with migraines, somebody with digestive issues, somebody with, irregular cycles, somebody doubled over in pain, they aren't thinking chiropractic first in a lot of these situations. So it's up to us to really spread that message. And if all you want to treat as a chiropractor, if all you want to treat is on neck pain and back pain, there's lots of people that don't even know that we help that. So like, talk about that. If you want to talk about just adjusting, colicky babies, talk about that. But it's like, if all of us spend as much money and energy and time to get the message of chiropractic out to their community as I do for my local practice, we would be, instead of being at 10, 12% utilization rates, we'd be at 90 to 100% utilization rates, because I think that when you tell people the truth, it makes total sense to them. They just don't know in most cases.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we should all spend as much as you do on it.
I agree.
We all just need to have the skills you have too.
I'm telling you, like, if you literally just hit boost and spent money on it, more people would see it.
Okay.
It's not even like
technique for the day.
Right.
Everyone, just hit boost, put some money behind it, and it's done.
It's done. That's
right?
all you have to do. It's better than whatever you are doing right now.
Should they do it?
Like at least one a week.
Uh-huh.
Because the thing is like if you just do one video and you put money behind it, it'll show throughout the week. It like people that see it for the first time will think that you just posted it yesterday. It doesn't really matter. Like organically, like, yeah, you should probably be posting something every day. But in terms of like coming up with a piece of content that you think is going to matter and going to educate someone, once a week is probably pretty good. I mean, yeah, every day is better, but you know, once a week, if you're doing nothing now, is better than nothing. But I'm saying like, if you put your money behind getting your message out, more people will hear it. It may impact one person. And that's really like when I make a video, when I write a blog, it's only about trying to impact one person. If this interview impacts one person, it was worth doing, you know, and it was worth doing either way. I mean, to hang out with you. So.
I appreciate you doing it. And I think we're going to affect more than one person.
Yeah.
I always ask our doctors when they come on to share, what are your key tips to staying healthy, active, and vibrant?
I would say, you know, as I've gotten older, like diet has just been like such an important piece. I mean, obviously, I think chiropractic care is the foundation of anybody's health. You have to start with your nervous system functioning correctly. Once you've established that, though, I think that, you know, putting healthy foods into your body, not ingesting a lot of sugar, a lot of flour, a lot of things that are going to create inflammation. I was just talking to one of my mentors this weekend, Dr. 𝗲𝘃𝗃𝗃, who, if you don't know who he is, if you're, you know, a lay person, or if you're a chiropractor that doesn't know, he has such a simple way of getting people to deflame their bodies. So I'd recommend looking into that. And then just being positive. Like I'm a really optimistic person, and I think that helps me through a lot of things. So whenever something bad happens, I don't care how bad it is, I just assume that it's like, okay, it happened. Not assume, but I'm just like, I just, you know, am clear that it happened, and all I can control is like going forward. And so usually when something bad, I haven't had a lot of like terrible things happen to me in my life, but when something bad does happen, I always look for the good that came out of it, something that I learned, some way that I changed, and then I just focus in on that. And my mindset, I think, really helps me get through some of the stressors that I have in like daily life. Just because I just assume like none of it is that bad. Like you're still breathing. So no matter what, especially like business stuff, like most of my stress is from business. I have very little stress like in my normal life.
Just your dog biting me.
Other than that, like I was a little bit stressed out about that, but in my business life though, I have lots of stress. I have lots of people depending on me, a lot of things, like a lot of moving parts. I have a lot of responsibilities that I don't always get done exactly the way that I would like them to do. So I have to stay optimistic, stay focused on the future and getting better and evolving. And so I just think mindset is really a big one, because I think so many people are just like miserable for no reason, and it affects their physical health. You know, there's a brain body connection for sure, obviously, as we're sitting here talking about that. So I think that you've got to stay optimistic and stay positive.
I love those 3 steps.
Yeah.
All of our listeners can wind up doing that super
Absolutely,
easy.
yeah. Yeah.
Now, the last thing I always like to ask and end with is asking, who is your chiropractor?
So both of my associates, Dr. Rob and Dr. Pat in my office are my chiropractors. The problem is I don't go there as often as I would like. So I've got to, I'm glad you came by and asked me that, because it made me, I've been thinking about it for a while.
Yeah.
And so I need to get somebody here in Chicago.
Yeah. So as we talked about, when we look out this window, we know about 2 or 3 different chiropractors that we could point to their practices.
We can like literally hit them with rocks from here. So that'll be good.
Well, Dr. Nick, I want to thank you for joining me. Thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you for sharing a bit of knowledge about what you do as well. And I really appreciate it. Yeah. Listeners, I hope that you appreciate it too. If you want to connect with Dr. Nick, look for him all over social media, as well as at his agency, Leverage Media. They're really awesome and can help you with many things. If you like this podcast and you'd like to listen to more stories like it, feel free to subscribe to our podcast. We're on all the podcatchers. Also, if you'd like to give us a 5-star review, that's the way more people can wind up seeing this podcast and sharing it. I want to once again thank you for allowing me to be a part of your health.